Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about vacations, which is underneath the Do the Fun Stuff tab in livinretirement.com. That's livin' without a G, retirement.com. So we're going to talk about three things today. First, my goal for vacation, how I do the schedule, and so on and so forth. The second thing we're going to talk about is my top 3 favorite places. And then third, we're going to talk about what I use to get the most out of each one of these vacations. And I want to share that with you. And then finally, we're going to be asking for you to share your favorites as well on the Let's Talk tab in livinretirement.com. So let's get started with the first thing, which is the goal that I have for vacation, which is about 15% of my time I want to spend on vacations, or 8 weeks. Generally, the way I break it up is I have each year we plan a new destination vacation that lasts about 2 weeks, and that's where I spend the bulk of my time planning. The second piece of our vacations is about 3 weeks on annual trips that we take with family and friends. And the last thing is the miscellaneous trips, the last 3 weeks where we take advantage of something that comes up, or, a wedding or whatever the case may be. But it just kind of gives us some flexibility to have a, quick trip here, there, everywhere. So that's about our 8 weeks. The number one thing we also do with vacations is make sure that we're spending it with family and friends. And that's one of the goals and focuses as well as all these goals. Incorporating in family and friends makes everything more fun and more enjoyable. So that's the first big thing. The second thing that I'd like to share with you is my top 3 vacations. This is a hard one. I mean, it was very difficult to pick my top 3. I actually was able to pick my top 1 pretty quickly, but after that, each one is so different and has such different experiences. It was hard to pick them. But here are my top 3. Number 1, Positano, Italy, on the Amalfi Coast. Absolutely fabulous. This is a place that once we've gone to all the other places we want to go to, we will go back. It was absolutely one of our favorites, both Eric and myself. We stayed at the most beautiful bed and breakfast. It had literally, and I'm going to use the word veranda, and the price was unbelievably affordable. It was much cheaper than any hotel I could find. So again, check out those bed and breakfasts, look at different places online, because man, can they give you a good bang for your buck. So we had a beautiful veranda. There was breakfast served to us every morning. We looked out over the Mediterranean. It was spectacular. But in addition, there's so many things to do around Positano. Number 1, we went to a lemon grove tour. Literally went to the lemon grove, saw the lemon trees. At the end of the tour, they had limoncello, which is a nice little liqueur beverage for everyone. They had lemon cake, lemon bars, lemonade. It was fantastic. Highly recommend that one. And literally, we also ate a lemon like it was an apple. They have a special kind that you can eat the skin and everything. It was delicious. I was a little reluctant, but went for it. It was delicious. Secondly, we went to Pompeii. Pompeii is very close. That is a must-do as well. Fantastic. We actually had a driver pick us up and bring us there. It was perfect. The third thing we did, we got a rubber boat. That's what they call it there, and it has a little awning on it. Brought on a lunch full of cheese and meats that we had bought at a store in town, and went out on that boat and swam in the Mediterranean. We kept right along by the shore, but it was absolutely magical. There's lots of little caves and inlets you can go into. It was really, really fun. The third thing we did is we went over to Capri. Very, very neat island as well. I would recommend that you go on the tram. Forget about the grotto. It's crazy busy. it wasn't worth it, in my opinion. And another thing we did was a cooking class. Really fun. It ended up being, the bed and breakfast lady recommended it, and it ended up being a private lesson for the two of us. It was spectacular, really was. So, Positano, that's my number one recommendation. My second recommendation is Paris. Love, love Paris. If you're a foodie, and I am, you can't go into a restaurant and have a bad meal. The food is spectacular. The chocolate croissants are to die for. All of the pastries are to die for. But one piece of recommendation I got on my way down from London on the train was from an old Parisian. And he told me, he said, put away your maps, and he said, get lost in Paris. He said, walk down a street to the right, walk down the street to the left, go in a general direction, head towards the Eiffel Tower, but go down streets and you'll be amazed at what you find. And you know what? I actually found a street that was full of chocolatiers, another one of my favorite things in life. And it was just fantastic. And it was one of the best pieces of advice I have ever been given. Get lost in Paris. Eat, enjoy, look around. The Louvre, Notre Dame, Versailles, if you want to go out and do a country trip on the train. Again, just a spectacular, beautiful experience. Paris, I love it. The third place is Maui. Absolutely loved it. Both Eric and I just had a spectacular time. Beautiful weather, mountains, beaches, rainforest. It had, rustic, rural. It had, just enough commercial. It was just spectacular. Some of the things we did, we self-snorkeled. It was basically free. We had, for a week you could get fins and a mask and, a snorkel for, under $20 each. So you could go all over the island and snorkel some beautiful reefs for absolutely free. The second thing we did is we actually took a tour, and it was called the Trilogy Tour, and I highly recommend that one. They gave us lunch. They actually put up the sails, and I mean, it was just magical. We saw whales along the way. It was just beautiful. We went to Maui Gold, pineapple fields and factory, and got to see that. It was just amazing. Make sure you check to see the day that the factory is actually working. They only work like 2 or 3 days a week, so make sure that that's the day that you're going on your your tour. We also went surfing at a very beginner beach, and the group that taught us how to surf was Big Kahuna, and they were really, really good. They took pictures. It was just fun. It was really a fun experience. We took the road to Hana. That was just beautiful. Make sure you take all the stops along the way that they recommend. It's just, or even if you don't, just make sure you really pay attention to all the different things that you can do along the way. Don't race there. Really take your time. And the food, oh my gosh, it was so good. If you've never had a fish taco, let this be your first fish taco. You'll probably never be able to eat another one again. It's so good. But yeah, just a spectacular trip. Highly recommend it. There's also several inexpensive trips. Those were a little expensive, but there's inexpensive trips too. For here in the US, the Key West. I won't go into it too much, but that's a great one if you live on the East Coast. If you live on the West Coast, anything in California. I love California. And then one other big one that's very, very affordable, Costa Rica. Absolutely loved Costa Rica. Couldn't believe how cheap it was. So that's the other one I'd recommend. So next up, the last thing, I'd like to talk about the approach that I use to plan these vacations, particularly the new adventures, and hopefully it'll help you as well. And it starts with these travel books. This one happens to be Lonely Planet. My two favorites are Lonely Planet and Photos. So for me, it starts with these books. I read them. I highlight, I look at different activities that we're interested in, and then really work the activities and how many days we're going to be there, and really start thinking about it. Then I go to the internet and start looking at the activities that were recommended and things that I'm interested in, and really check them out on the internet as well. I always book in advance for activities, because the last thing you want to do is, let's say you want to go surfing, and yeah, you could roll the dice and maybe you'll get a reservation, but 7 times out of 10 they're going to be booked. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you about is in September is when we usually take our trips, because all the kids are back in school and it's still beautiful weather and there are deals. So September, early September to mid-September is always a great time to go. And then finally, I put together a spreadsheet with information, activities, transportation, costs, the whole 9 yards, and I'm going to share that with you in a minute. Okay, so here is the spreadsheet that I use, and you can see along the top here I have the date, location, activity, transportation, hotel, and then also cost. And I put out the date, September 5th here for an example, and the day, day meaning Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It gets confusing otherwise. And again, location, if you're going to several different locations, this helps. For example, on this trip we were going to Rome and Orvieto and then also to Positano. So, we also went to Siena as well. So it was really important to keep track of location. If you're just going to one place, obviously you wouldn't need to have this column. Then, of course, the activity, this is, and I label it out by time. I only try to have one big activity a day, and generally, again, I always make the reservation in advance, put down a deposit. I've never had any issue. Again, I use the travel books. They have good recommendations. There's no, the issue with just going online is you don't really know the reputation. But if it's on one of these books, you can be pretty darn sure that they're a good, reputable company. And you can just see, the activity. And then I always print these in paper hard copy and bring it along, and then I also take photocopies so it's on my phone. So if I ever lose it, either my phone or the hard copy, I've got a copy of our schedule. And then transportation, once again, if you're in the US, this is not a big deal. You'd basically pick up your rent-a-car and go. But if you're not doing that, if you're taking trains or anything like that, then transportation is a key column to have. Then hotels, where you're staying, that's always important, particularly if you're switching around. And then cost is also something that I like to keep track of beforehand. This travel spreadsheet has really helped me, and I hope it helps you in some way too. So that's it for vacation. Now all I'm going to ask is that you too go to our website, liveinretirement.com, go to the Let's Talk tab and tell us what your top 3 vacations are. Tell us what tips you have to manage your vacations and get the most out of it. I'd really like to hear, and I know everybody else would too.